Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and I'm here today to kick off a very exciting vlog for me. And this is one where I am letting Kylee costumes control my reading. This time of year is spooky season, but it's also what we call Kylee costume season. My dog is so patient and so loving and so intrigued by the idea of wearing costumes. She sometimes will actually bring me a costume to put on her. And this is something that's always been a lot of fun. I include her costumes quite a bit on my Bookstagram account. And in October, we go extra strong for the Kylee costumes. And I increase my number of costumes for the month. In years past, sometimes we've done like some voting at the end of the season for which were the favorite costumes. And this year I decided to include that fun on BookTube by letting Kylee's costumes control my reading for a little bit. So I've been doing some polls over on Bookstagram, emoji polls, to pick a costume. And then once I have that costume in mind, I need to pick a book to match. So without further ado, the first poll I put up was this one. And I don't think I'm going to tell you what all of the things correlate to, because some of them will get repeated later. Some of them are very obvious. Some of them are less obvious. So it all depended on what emojis I had available to me, really. But the one that won was squirrel. So let me show you Kylee the squirrel. Okay, I'm back with Squirrel Dog Kylee. It's gonna kind of be hard to see all of the costumes when I'm holding her, I think. But actually, I think this one shows up pretty well because you can see the tail here. This is one of her new costumes, so I had to go for it because squirrels are her nemesis, and I think it'll be fun to let her go out and chase some squirrels dressed up as a squirrel, and or terrorize my dad's dog by letting her confuse the heck out of that squirrel chasing puppy. So let me put her down so I can explain what book I'm going to choose. Okay, so for the squirrel costume, I decided to go with Wild Failure, and this is by Zoe Whittle, and this one is a collection of short stories. And I think the fact that it's got wild in it, and squirrels run around wild, it's got a non-squirrel but little creature on it, and I think it kind of just suited the book, so we're gonna go with it. Like I said, it is a collection of short stories. It's one I was gifted by Ballantine Books, and it says, a dazzling collection of short stories from best-selling author Zoe Whittle. In Wild Failure, characters encounter feelings of shame, desire, attachment, and disconnection as they navigate through bad decisions, unusual situations, and fraught relationships. So I think it's contemporary type stories. I've been trying to get to more short stories in my reading in general. So this is one that I'm going to be picking up and reading, and I'll give you my thoughts. I don't know that a midway check-in on this one makes a whole lot of sense because there's not really a through kind of storyline, but I will check in at least at the end to give you thoughts. And you definitely will be getting some B-roll of Kylee in her adorable costume. I had to do a little sewing to make it so she could have her acorn tacked up there without walking through her arms constantly. So she's had to wear it a couple of times now, but she is cute. She's a cute squirrel. I have finished up my first Kylee Costumes book pick. And this collection, I think, wasn't 100% a really me type of book. It focuses more in on sex and bodies and those types of depictions that aren't necessarily what I gravitate towards personally. I do think it's well written. I think the character studies in here are really interesting. I think the stories have a good mix and uniqueness to each of them where they don't all sound like the same story over and over again. As with any collection, certain ones hit for me more than others. We had a good mix of characters in here as well. I think that worked out quite well for me. And overall, I had a good time with the collection, and I am giving this one a 3.5. The time has come for our next Kylee costume reveal. So the poll that I put up was this one, and the results came in with the ghosties in the lead, and they were pretty much ahead most of the time. Spiderweb tried to make a comeback, but couldn't overtake the ghosts, and really, what says spooky season more than a ghost? So here's our resident boo. This one, I will admit, is one of our new costumes, and it's a little bit big on her. I should have gone down a size, but I still think it's adorable. It's almost towel-like, like to put on her after she gets out of the bath almost. But I think it's really cute, and it's even got a hole which I won't be able to find back here for a leash, so she could actually wear it for a walk if we wanted to. Yeah, you're a cute ghost. Okay, can I put you down so we can tell them what book I'm gonna read? Ghost gave me so many options I could read for spooky season, but the one that I really wanted to get to is Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates. I got this right when it came out, which wasn't that far back, but still, it's one I keep saying I want to get to and just haven't. So this one, as I understand it, is a novella, which is a reprint for her, which is Ghost Camera. And then it's also got some other novellas and or short stories mixed in here. And I've really had a good time with Darcy Coates' short stories in the past, so I do have hopes for this one as well. I was hoping there would be a table of contents in the beginning, and indeed there is not. So I guess I will find out once I get reading how many stories and novellas and so forth are in here. It's not a short book, and it is only available in print, so it will be an eyeball read, so it'll take me a little bit longer. But Darcy Coates is just such a gripping read usually. I don't have any worries about being able to fly through this one. So I'll be back once I get going. I just realized this is my second collection of short stories for this video. Wasn't the intent, but I'll be back, I think, with some thoughts on this one midway because it is a novella more so than just short stories. I don't know what I'm doing, clearly, but I'll be back at some point in the future with thoughts. Hi, cute little boo. Okay, so for my ghosty book, Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates, I figured I would give you an update now that I've read the novella that gives this volume its name, which is Ghost Camera, and then I'll do a review of the rest of the book when I finish the rest of the stories. But I read Ghost Camera last night. It was an easy one-sitting binge. It's only 100 pages, and these aren't super dense pages by any means, and I really enjoyed it. This is a story she originally published, I believe it was in 2014, and it had gone out of print, and from her author's note she talked about that it's the book that's the most requested. People are looking for it, and she broke her normal procedures and went back and reread it and didn't think it was awful. So she did a little bit of editing just to fix a few things. This was her debut originally, but otherwise she said it's pretty much the same book. So I can definitely see a little bit. I would say that it isn't quite what her current books are. I've noticed some of her backlists don't pull me in quite as much as the current one, but this one really hit for me. I would say the story alone, I would give it a strong 4 stars. Obviously, I'm gonna have to judge the whole collection together, but we'll see. This one is following a woman. She finds a Polaroid camera when she's at a wedding and just for the fun of it takes a picture. When she looks at the picture though, she sees there's some like ghostly images on it that you can tell are people. So she goes to a friend who knows a little bit more about photography, and they play around with the camera a bit more and keep getting these ghostly images. And as it goes, these images get scarier. And I don't want to give much away because this is a novella, but there's a lot of danger. There's good tension. There's creepy moments. Reading this late at night was definitely prime ghost reading to kick off the collection for me. And I had a great time with it. It sucked me right in and drew my attention. I liked the characters. Some of the dialogue wasn't 100% my favorite thing, but overall, this was a really good time, and it has me even more excited to continue on with the rest of the collection. Okay, I'm back with updates. I am still reading Ghost Camera and very much enjoying myself, but the mood that I'm kind of in a read 1 to 2 stories a night type of mood, and not every night is giving me time to sit down and physically read. So I'm going to keep going on this one and still let you know what the next poll was. So the next poll that I put up was this one, and what won was the dinosaur. So let me show off Dinosaur Kylee. Here is Dino Kid Kylee, the cutest and furriest dinosaur. This is one of our newer costumes. I premiered it earlier this year with my SPFBO semi-finalist, Lizard Skin and Sharpened Steel. But I am not disappointed that this one won the poll. So let me put Kylee down and I will show you what book I picked up. Okay, the book that I am picking to go with the dinosaur costume is The Paleontologist by Luc Demas. I have not read this author before and I've heard mixed things about this book, but I was kindly gifted a copy by Atria and this one has been on my shelf for a while, so it's finally time to get to it. And what pairs better with a dinosaur costume than an actual dinosaur on the cover and a paleontologist? With this one, we're following a paleontologist. His sister was abducted from a museum when he was a child, and that's haunted him ever since. And now as an adult, he's feeling drawn back to his hometown and to trying to find answers. And there are weird things going on with this museum, strange sounds and things he can't explain, and it sounds like it could play on a few things that really will work for me. So I'm excited to go ahead and get going on this one while I am still continuing to read my short stories. So I'll be back once I have thought on The Paleontologist. I'm here to give a really quick update on The Paleontologist, and so far I'm liking this. I'm intrigued by it. I can definitely see why it feels slow to a lot of people though, because it is kind of slow. We're following paleontologist Dr. Simon Neely. This is set in the midst of COVID. He's working at a museum that is shut down because of COVID, and he is dealing with a lot in his life. When he was a boy, he and his sister were at this particular museum. He wanted to see the dinosaur. His sister was looking at something else. He left her to go see the dinosaur and she disappeared. She was never found, and he holds a lot of guilt about this to this day. His mother, who is dealing with mental health or dementia or something along those lines, blames him for his sister going missing, and he's starting to kind of look into this. He's now working for this museum. He's been tasked with working on this dinosaur, or this dinosaur skeleton, that his predecessor kind of started the work on, but he needs to finish it up. It hasn't been taken care of well. It is in need of a lot of work, but it also seems like there's some lore surrounding the skeleton or the museum in general about spooky noises in the night. He's starting to hear things at the museum and beginning to see things as well. And how much is real, how much is just the stress of his life. Between the new job, his romance had just ended. There's a lot going on in here. So I'm very intrigued. We are getting some pretty heavy information passages about dinosaurs, about research, about the museum, but I find it interesting, so that's not bothering me about it. I think there's a lot of buildup so far, so I'm hoping to get even more invested in the second half of the book, and I'll let you know once I finish it if it worked. I'm back with final thoughts on The Paleontologist, and overall I liked it. I'm glad I read it. I didn't love it. I think I wound up with some mixed feelings. There's a lot going on in here. There's kind of multiple mysteries, one being a little more natural, one being a little more paranormal. There's strangeness tied to the museum. There's the whole COVID experience of it all, which I didn't really anticipate going into this one. And I liked our main character for the most part. I didn't love kind of the way he checked out on the world a lot of the time, but that improved as the story went on. We had definitely some conveniences going on with the way they were able to just come up with money from their special donor and do things like that. So I wound up with mixed feelings, to put it mildly. But the general idea of this book was an interesting one. I liked the whole dinosaur aspect of it. The supernaturalness tied to the dinosaurs was interesting. So overall, not a bad experience. But it's time for our next costume reveal. So I put up a poll, and what won was the pumpkin. And this was actually one of the first polls I put up, but I got in mind that the pumpkin emoji, I wanted it to be a book that screamed Halloween, and that's something I wanted to read in October. So October will be hitting very, very soon. So let's go ahead and show off the costume, and then I'll talk to you about what I'm reading. Here's my little pumpkin, Kylie. I thought this was adorable and perfect for Halloween. Of course, we got the jack-o'-lantern back on it as well. Say hello to your fans, puppy dog. You do get a cookie out of this, you know. That's what you're waiting on. All right, I'm gonna put her down and then I'll talk to you about what I'm gonna be reading. Okay, to start off October officially, I decided to pair the pumpkin costume with a very Halloween-y read. And this is going to be Trick or Treat by Richie Tankersley Kuzik, and this is one that I found on KU specifically for my horror bingo TBR. I have posted that shortly before this one is going to be going up, so I will link that. But basically for that, I was looking for a book set around Halloween where Trick or Treat is part of it in order to hit the hard mode prompt for that bingo reading challenge brought to us by Sarah at Wicked Reading. And this is the book that I came up with because Trick or Treat is in the title, so I'm assuming somehow it's going to play into the story. As I understand it, this is a YA Halloween horror, and it is youths are moving into a kind of rundown house. They find out something dark or sinister about the house, I think. I don't know much about this one. It's one I purely picked up for that particular readathon prompt, but I think with the Halloween vibes of it, and it matches the costume perfectly, so I will go ahead and kick off October reading that to start my horror bingo challenge and go from there. I have a couple of updates for you. First off, I did finish up Ghost Camera at the very end of September, and I had a fantastic time with this collection. I think, as with any collection, a few of them hit a little bit more for me than others, but there weren't any in here that I didn't like. So this was a very, very strong 4-star read for me. I'm a little disappointed that there's no table of contents in here because I really appreciate that in a story collection. But after the initial ghost story novella, we got a bunch of short stories, and then at the very end there's another novella. So you get a little bit of a mix of longer content and some really shorter stories, and they felt comfortable. They felt familiar in the sense that they felt like Darcy's writing, but they didn't feel repetitive. I thought there was a good mix of things in here, and I would highly recommend picking this one up. And then I wasn't sure if I was going to do a midway or not because it's so short, but I am halfway into Trick or Treat now. As the book opens, we're following Martha, and she is a 16-year-old girl. Her father has just married a new woman, and they are all moving into a new to them house, but it is kind of a creepy house. And she is getting a new stepbrother who's just a little bit older than her as part of the deal. And there's something about her new bedroom in this house. It's really, really cold. She feels like something weird has gone on there. And there's rumors as the story goes on circling this house. It turns out that a young girl around her age died there, a brutal murder. It's supposed to have been committed by her boyfriend, but the boyfriend supposedly killed himself, but they never found the body. So it's kind of giving typical YA horror type of vibes, but I am enjoying it. It's a very quick read. It's only, I think, 250 pages. pages or 200 pages, I forget, but I'm having a generally good time with it. The stepbrother, Connor, is kind of a weird situation because of course they're not related, and at the beginning of the book they barely know each other, but she kind of has a crush on him, as does every other female in this entire town. So that's an interesting element to it. I'm not sure where it's going with it. There's definitely some of the high school YA relationship angst going on. She's meeting new boys. There's a new friend who has a crush on Connor. So it's very much YA in that sense, but I think some of the creepy elements, the atmosphere of the house, are well done. There's a graveyard on the property. This is a very old house from an old prominent family, so there are those graves on the property. There's some weird things going on. So it's keeping me very intrigued. I'm glad I picked it up. It has mentioned trick or treat in the text multiple times at this point because the murder in the house did happen on Halloween, and there have been calls saying trick or treat and saying you're dead. So I'm intrigued to keep going, and I'll provide an update later. I have some updates on the Kylee costume front, and first off, I finished Trick or Treat, and this was just a fun read. It felt very reminiscent of the horror I would read kind of in my younger days when I was YA, and it had fun vibes. I wouldn't say the characters were super in-depth. I think there were some cringe moments here or there, but it did some good spooky moments. There were some twists and turns, not all of which I 100% predicted. So overall, this was a good time. I'm giving it a 3.5, and I'm glad that the horror bingo board had me stumble upon this and pick it up because it was just a good time. But with that, it's time for our next reveal, and the poll I put up wound up with the horse winning. So let me show you the costume that goes with that. Okay, and here we have Kylee the horse. I know she doesn't look a lot like a horse, but the point of this costume was that she is the headless horseman's steed. Together they shall ride, not at dawn, but maybe midnight. I don't remember the details of the story quite frankly, but she's got the headless horseman. She's ready to go for a ride. I'm ready to put her down because this is kind of awkward in terms of how to hold her. Say hi, Bowie! And she's ready for her horse feed, aka dog cookie. And I'll talk to you about the book I'm reading. Okay, knowing what was on my shelf, there was only really one good option to wear with a headless horseman costume, and that is Horseman by Christina Henry. And this is one I keep putting off because I have reservations about how much I'm going to enjoy this one. I've heard not the best things, and Christina Henry's books in general have the potential to be something I really enjoy, but also have potential to really not be. So we'll see. This one is set in the same town as the actual Sleepy Hollow. It's set some years after the actual story of Ichabod, the horseman, all of that. And then we're following a young boy in this one, is my understanding. His grandfather was actually there when the horseman chased Ichabod, and that's really all I know. There's a child that is found headless, and it stirs up rumors of what's happening. Is it happening again? I don't know. I did read the original story last year, I believe it was, so I'm hoping that gives me enough recollection to really kind of connect more with this one, but we shall see. Not too much time has passed, and I made it roughly a third of the way into Horseman, and I'm just not connecting in with the story. I think it has some good things to tell. I think it has some good elements, but there's just something about it that's not drawing me in. Whether it's because it's historical, which I've said it before, isn't really working super well for me at the moment, or it's just something about the story itself. The young boy named Ben is a trans young man, and he knows he was born a boy. His grandmother keeps misgendering him, and there's that going on in the background of this. We've got the headless child element happening, and that should be drawing my attention more into it, and it's just not. There's something about this that I'm not connecting in with. It's not making me want to keep picking it up. It's not making me want to binge what should be a super fast read. read. So I think I'm going to give up on this one, and we're going to do one more costume, one more reveal, but I'm not going to make Kylee put another one on right this moment. I'll be back when I'm ready to start my new book with the new costume and a new book. It is time for our final costume choice for this vlog, and this is the poll that I put up, and what won was the dress emoji. So let me grab our all dressed up Kylee. And here she is, the belle of the ball. This is Kylee, ready to dance the night away in her feather and sequin dress. Kylee is currently set pretty much just behind you, still in her dress. We lost the hat, but still in her dress, staring out over the neighborhood. So I always find it amusing when she's all dressed up doing her neighborhood watch. But that's not what I'm here for right at the moment. I'm here to tell you what book I'm planning to read for this costume pick. Now, she's not dressed all in white, but I thought being dressed up, feathers and sequins, New Orleans maybe made some sense. So I'm going to be reading the Debutantes by Olivia Worley. And this is a YA thriller. I have an e-arc for this one from St. Martin's Press. This is set in Mardi Gras. It's set right around the new year, and it begins with a debutante ball. And last year things went really, really badly. The queen wound up dead right after the ball. And this year things don't seem to be going so well either. There's a bit of a Carrie moment to begin with, where the presumed queen is splashed with red paint, and a bunch of images of last year's queen who wound up dead are flashed up as well. They don't catch the person responsible, but this queen, Lily, winds up missing after the ball, and her friends and or fellow Debs wind up trying to hunt her down because no one's taking it seriously. Everyone thinks she just ran off, but there's a lot of secrets. There's a lot going on behind the masks of the ball and of the different settings, and it doesn't seem like anyone's going to get answers if these girls don't do it themselves. I am actually already halfway into this one, and so far I'm enjoying it. It took me a little bit to get into it, quite frankly. We're reading from 3 different girls' POVs, some who really knew Lily well, some less so, but maybe knew last year's queen better, and there's a lot of questions, a lot of secrets, a lot going on here, and it took a bit for me to just kind of get used to who the different POVs are, who the side characters are, because each of them knows different people differently, and all of that. But I am very intrigued. Once I kind of got past the 20% mark or so, it was really fast going after that. So I am eager to continue and keep reading and see where this takes me. I am back with my final thoughts for this vlog. I finished the debutantes last night, and it went better for me in the second half. I struggled at the beginning getting into it, and it wasn't a book that ever kind of called me to pick it back up right away, but overall I found it entertaining. There's an element of needing to kind of turn your logic brain off because bad decisions are being made, and that's fine. It reminded me in a lot of ways of Pretty Little Liars, and the way that you have this group of female characters, they're getting messages from someone. In this case, it's the jester instead of A, but there's secrets that the jester holds over their heads. There's a mystery for them to go ahead and solve, and it has some of those elements. So I think if you like that type of story, this one might work as well. I think this one wasn't quite as compulsively readable as I'm finding the Pretty Little Liars books, but it was a good time. I liked the New Orleans setting, the Mardi Gras type idea. There's a lot in here about kind of female versus male and who has the power in these situations. I think there's some good commentary on that. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending of it all and the reveals that we get in the end. I'm not sure that it came to quite the female empowerment moment that I really wanted out of it, but overall I had a good time with it. I think once I got into the story. Last night I flew through the last 40% without putting it down, so it did eventually hook me in, and I'm giving this one 3.5 in the end. So with that, it is time to wrap up our Kylee Control vlog, and I am really glad that I did this. It was a lot of fun to kind of pair some costumes, pick some books to go with it, and the random element of having the polls made it interesting for me because I didn't know exactly what I was going to get. It also gave me some shortcuts to getting some costume photos done for Bookstagram. So if you've enjoyed Kylee in all of her costumes, we will be seeing more of them throughout the month of October, especially in the Bookstagram post that I'm putting up. This month it's all Kylee costumes all the time, and in the rest of my vlogs for this month we're getting some costume appearances as well. I even put a Kylee costume spot on my game board for Halloween-A-Thon, which is one of the readathons I'm participating in this month, which is brought to us by Kelsi from Slime and Slashers, and you get to kind of make your own game board if you'd like. So Kylee costumes will make an appearance on that board as well. So with that, I will go ahead and wrap it up here. Let me know in the comments below, did you have a favorite costume? Have you read any of these books? Do you have any of them on your TBR? Let me know all the things. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me an emoji related to a Halloween costume, either one of the ones Kylee wore or something that you've enjoyed wearing in the past, or anything Halloween related really would work. I would surely appreciate it if you could hit that like button below and subscribe if you're interested in more Kylee costumes, more of my bookish content, more of my book thoughts. And with that, I will leave you here and catch you real soon in a new video.